The relocation facility on Threshold 9 was designed to be welcoming, soft lighting, comfortable seating, decorative elements from multiple species. But Marcus Webb felt the wrongness the moment he stepped through the entrance. 20 years in colonial defense had taught him to trust his instincts, and his instincts were screaming that something about this place was off. The companion integration program had been presented to him as ethical, voluntary, beneficial for both parties. Retiring soldiers matched with willing partners from various species for mutual support during civilian transition. His therapist had recommended it. His discharge counselor had endorsed it. The brochures showed happy mixed-species households, testimonials about successful integration. Marcus had been skeptical. He'd never been comfortable with relationships, preferred solitude, but the program seemed genuine. And after 20 years of service, maybe it was time to try something different. The Thralian administrator who greeted him introduced himself as Coordinator Cavex. 8 feet tall, crystalline features that reflected the facility's soft lighting, voice professionally modulated. Commander Webb, welcome. Your application has been processed and approved. Your match has been prepared and is waiting in the integration chamber. Prepared. The word choice bothered Marcus. Standard intake protocols, medical clearance, behavioral assessment, contract verification. Cavex gestured toward a corridor. If you'll follow me. They moved through increasingly secure sections of the facility. Each door required biometric authentication. Each corridor had fewer windows, less of that welcoming design. More clinical, more institutional. Your match is Princess Lyria Sethara of Vel'kar, Cavex continued, reviewing data on a tablet. Excellent cultural education, diplomatic training, psychological assessment indicates high compatibility with your profile. How does someone assess compatibility for people who have never met? We use comprehensive psychological metrics, lifestyle preferences, biological compatibility factors. The algorithms are quite sophisticated. They reached a heavy door marked Integration Assessment Chamber 7. Cavex entered a security code. You'll have 30 minutes for initial assessment before finalizing the arrangement. All contracts have been pre-verified, so this is primarily for your comfort level. Assessment, arrangement. The language was all wrong. The door slid open. Marcus stepped through and stopped cold. This wasn't a comfortable meeting room. This was a holding chamber. Clinical white walls, bright overhead lighting, environmental controls visible on wall panels, and in the center, behind a translucent containment barrier that hummed with active energy, was a woman. An alien woman. Vel'karian, elegant scaled features, bioluminescent patterns that should have glowed with vitality but were dim and flickering. Long ears swept back against her head in what Marcus's cultural database identified as a fear posture. She wore a simple shift that looked like institutional clothing, and she was absolutely terrified. Not nervous, not uncertain, genuinely, profoundly terrified. She'd backed into the far corner of the containment area, her body language screaming defeat and fear. When she saw Marcus, her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with colors that his translator overlay identified as extreme distress. What is this? Marcus's voice came out harder than he intended. This is your assigned companion, Cavex said smoothly. Princess Lyria Sethara, vetted and cleared for integration. The containment barrier is standard protocol until contract acceptance. She's in a cage, a protective barrier. Some subjects require acclimation period before. Subjects. Marcus turned to face Cavex directly. I was told this was a voluntary program, that I'd be meeting someone who chose to participate. All participants are legally processed according to station regulations. The contract is fully compliant. She's locked behind a barrier. She's terrified. She looks like she's been held here against her will. Marcus felt his military composure cracking. This isn't what I was told to expect. Cavex's crystalline features shifted in what might have been annoyance. Perhaps there was miscommunication about program parameters. Would you like to review the contract specifications? I want to know why a woman is locked in a cage looking at me like I'm the next person who's going to hurt her. Marcus looked back at Lyria. She hadn't moved. If anything, she'd pressed harder into the corner, making herself smaller, her dim bioluminescent patterns flickering with distress. This was not a person who'd chosen to be here. This was someone who'd been put here, trapped here, waiting for whatever came next with the hopeless resignation of someone who'd learned that resistance only made things worse. "I need to speak with your supervisor," Marcus said quietly, "because what I'm looking at doesn't match anything I was told about this program. And I need someone to explain to me, very carefully, how this is supposed to be ethical or voluntary." Kavex sighed with the air of someone dealing with a tedious complication. "Commander, perhaps if I explain the full context of the princess's situation, you'll understand why the current arrangements are actually in her best interest." "Start explaining." Marcus's command voice came out instinctively. "And make it very clear how someone ends up locked in a cage in a program that's supposed to be about mutual support and voluntary partnership." Marcus stepped away from the viewing area, his anger barely contained. Every instinct from 20 years of military service was telling him this was wrong, and he'd learned to trust those instincts. "Explain to me exactly how this program works," he said, keeping his voice controlled through pure discipline. "From the beginning, because what I'm seeing doesn't match anything I was told." Kavex set his tablet down with a crystalline click. "Commander Webb, I understand you may have romanticized expectations about the program based on the public materials. Let me provide more comprehensive context." "I'm listening." The companion integration program sources participants from various channels. Some are indeed volunteers seeking relocation opportunities and cross-species partnership. Others are acquisitions through legal transfers of individuals whose circumstances make them available for beneficial placement. Legal transfers. Marcus's voice was flat. Individuals whose political, social, or economic status has rendered them non-viable in their original contexts. Rather than waste resources on indefinite holding or, frankly, more terminal solutions, these individuals are transferred to programs where they can provide value and receive protection. Marcus looked back through the barrier at Lyria. "You're talking about a person like she's property. I'm talking about legal processing of entities within station jurisdiction. The contracts are fully compliant with Threshold 9 regulations." Kavex pulled up documentation on his tablet. Princess Lyria was part of a political bonding arrangement between Vel'karian houses. When that arrangement dissolved due to shifting diplomatic circumstances, her status reverted to available. Available. She has no citizenship on Threshold 9, no resources, no family willing to retrieve her. The diplomatic costs exceeded her remaining utility to them. Without intervention, she would require indefinite holding at station expense or, he made a vague gesture, resource reallocation. Marcus felt sick. "You're saying her family abandoned her, so you're selling her to whoever will take her." "Providing beneficial placement opportunities," Kavex corrected. "The program offers her protection, stability, and purpose in exchange for companionship services to qualified recipients." Companionship services, domestic partnership, emotional support, and other services as mutually agreed upon in the contract. The specific terms are flexible based on the recipient's preferences. She's locked in a cage. She's terrified. There's nothing mutual about this. Initial fear response is common with subjects who have experienced trauma or displacement. Acclimation typically occurs within weeks of contract acceptance as they adjust to new circumstances and recognize the benefits of the arrangement. "Stop calling her a subject." Marcus's command voice cut through Kavex's explanation. "She's a person, a princess, apparently, and you've turned her into a commodity." Kavex's features shifted in what might have been crystalline irritation. "With respect, Commander, You're letting emotional response cloud practical assessment. This is a resource management solution. The princess had no viable alternatives. This program provides safety, stability, and purpose. The alternative was far less pleasant for her. And what exactly am I supposed to do after I accept the contract? Marcus asked. What are the expectations? Whatever you choose within station regulations regarding physical harm. The contract transfers responsibility and authority to you. How you exercise that authority is your discretion. Most recipients find their companions become quite agreeable after acclimation period. The sickness in Marcus's gut intensified. This wasn't a companionship program. This was sanitized slavery dressed up in bureaucratic language. What happens if I refuse the contract? Kavex consulted his tablet. The princess would be returned to holding pending alternative placement. Your file would be flagged for program incompatibility. You would forfeit the relocation benefits attached to program participation, and your housing allocation would be reassessed. And her alternative placement would be another qualified recipient, or long-term holding if no suitable matches emerge, though resource allocation protocols do eventually require resolution of cases that remain unproductive. Marcus understood the euphemism. If she wasn't useful to someone, she'd be quietly eliminated. The station wouldn't waste resources indefinitely on someone with no political value and no one to advocate for them. I need to speak with her directly, without the barrier. That's not protocol until after contract acceptance. I don't care about protocol. I'm not accepting anything until I talk to her. Open the barrier or I walk out of here and file formal complaints with every authority I can reach. Kavex weighed this. Marcus could see the calculation. Formal complaints would be problematic even if they ultimately went nowhere. Better to allow controlled contact. 5 minutes, supervised. Any aggressive behavior from either party triggers immediate security response. I'm not the one she needs protection from, Marcus said coldly. The barrier deactivated with a soft hum. Marcus entered the containment area slowly, hands visible, body language deliberately non-threatening. All his training about approaching frightened civilians kicked in. Move slowly, speak softly, make yourself less imposing. Lyria pressed harder into the corner, her breathing rapid, her eyes tracking his every movement with the wariness of someone who'd learned that other people brought pain. Marcus stopped well before reaching her, crouched down to reduce his height advantage, kept his voice gentle. My name is Marcus. I'm told your name is Lyria. Is that correct? She didn't respond, but her eyes flickered with something, surprise maybe, that he was asking rather than assuming. I was told I was coming here to meet someone who wanted to start a new life, someone who chose to participate in this program. That's clearly not what this is. He gestured around the holding chamber. And I need you to know, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not accepting whatever contract they're trying to enforce here. Her bioluminescent patterns flickered differently, confusion replacing some of the fear. I'm going to get you out of here, Marcus continued. But I need to understand what happened to you. Can you tell me? Or if you can't talk, can you? He gestured vaguely, not sure what alternatives existed. Lyria's voice when she finally spoke was hoarse from disuse and trembling. You're refusing the contract. Yes, absolutely, this whole thing is wrong. But you'll lose your benefits, your relocation status. They told me that whoever refused me would be penalized. I don't care about benefits. I care that you're locked in a cage being treated like property. Marcus kept his voice steady, unthreatening. Tell me what happened. How did you end up here? Slowly, haltingly, Lyria explained. She was Princess of Vel'kar, 5th in succession. Her family had arranged a political bonding with House Thixara to secure a military alliance. She'd been sent to the border stations for the formal ceremonies and negotiations. But the arrangement fell apart. Some political shift made the alliance unnecessary or undesirable. Suddenly the bonding was cancelled, and she was stranded on Threshold 9 with no diplomatic protection, no resources, no way home. She tried to contact her family for retrieval. They refused. I was an embarrassment, Lyria said quietly. A failed asset. Retrieving me would acknowledge the collapsed arrangement, would cost political capital they weren't willing to spend. My mother sent one message. Your service to the house is concluded. Do not contact us again. The station authorities took her into protective custody when her diplomatic status expired. That custody became holding. Holding became indefinite detention when no family claimed her, and she had no resources to secure her own release. Then someone realized I could be useful, Lyria continued, her voice hollow. Someone with royal bloodline but no political protection, exotic enough to be valuable to certain recipients, powerless enough to be manageable. They told me I should be grateful, that this program was better than the alternatives, that whoever accepted me would provide protection and stability, that my only value now was in service to whoever claimed me. Marcus felt his anger solidifying into cold determination. How long have you been here, in this facility? 3 months, different chambers, different handlers. They said I needed to learn to be more agreeable, more compliant. That resistance would only make placement harder. Did they hurt you? Lyria's bioluminescent patterns dimmed almost to nothing, the answer without words. Nobody's claiming you, Marcus said firmly. You're not property. You're a person whose family and government failed you. This station turned that failure into exploitation. None of that is your fault, and none of it makes you an object to be traded. But the contract, the legal frameworks, are being used to legitimize something fundamentally wrong. I've seen this before in war zones, bureaucratic language used to sanitize atrocities. Make them seem legal, necessary, even beneficial. This is the same thing. Marcus stood slowly, careful not to startle her. I'm getting you out of here, finding you real help. Actual asylum, not this sanctioned trafficking. They won't let you. The coordinator said refusal means I go back to holding, and eventually they'll find someone who accepts, or they'll— She couldn't finish the sentence. Then I won't refuse, not exactly. Marcus's mind was already working through the angles. 20 years in military bureaucracy had taught him how systems worked and where their weaknesses were. I need you to trust me for the next hour. Can you do that? Lyria looked at him with eyes that had learned not to trust anyone, but slowly she nodded. The next hour was a battle of bureaucracy and will. Marcus recorded everything on his personal device. He cited specific regulations about sentient rights and forced servitude. He threatened legal exposure that would bring unwanted attention to a program these administrators clearly wanted kept quiet. Most importantly, he refused to leave without Lyria. Just refused. Sat in the facility lobby and made it clear he would be a persistent, documented problem until this was resolved. Cavex tried reasoning, then threats, then more sophisticated pressure about Marcus's veteran benefits and housing allocation. Marcus countered every point. He knew regulations. He knew which authorities would be embarrassed by exposure. He knew how to be the kind of problem that bureaucracies hate, persistent, documented, unwilling to accept easy dismissal. You're making this unnecessarily difficult, Cavex said after 2 hours of standoff. You're running a trafficking operation under bureaucratic cover. I'm making it appropriately difficult. Hours passed. Legal consultants arrived. The situation escalated to senior station administration. And slowly, Marcus realized he'd created a problem they couldn't quietly resolve. Releasing Lyria would set a precedent that others might claim, but forcing the issue with a documented, vocal veteran would create exactly the kind of exposure they wanted to avoid. Finally, a senior administrator, a human woman named Director Chen, offered a compromise. Commander Webb, we acknowledge your concerns about program transparency. In the interest of resolving this situation, we're prepared to release Princess Lyria into your custody without formal contract acceptance. You would assume responsibility for her integration and behavior, but without the structured terms that seemed to concern you. It was still wrong. Lyria was still being transferred like property, but it got her out of the cage. I accept responsibility for her safety and well-being, Marcus said carefully. But I want it documented that she's not my property. She's a person under my protection, not my control. Those words exactly in the documentation. Director Chen frowned. That's unusual phrasing. That's my condition. Document it exactly that way or we continue this conversation until someone with oversight authority gets involved. 20 minutes later, Marcus walked out of the facility with Lyria beside him in borrowed civilian clothes. She moved like someone expecting the ground to disappear beneath her, flinching at sudden sounds, watching everyone with wary fear. "Why did you do this?" she asked quietly as they navigated the station corridors. "You gained nothing. Lost your housing benefits, made enemies of station administration. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. That's not a reason. No one acts against their own interests just for principle. Then you've been around the wrong people." Marcus guided her toward the civilian quarters section. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to help you find legitimate asylum, proper legal standing, connect you with Vel'karian diaspora groups if they exist on station. You're going to stay in a safe place where you have privacy and autonomy while we figure this out. You're helping me." "Yes. Why?" Her voice carried genuine confusion, like the concept of helping without expectation of return was foreign. "Because you need help and I can provide it. That's how this should work." The safe place turned out to be Marcus's own apartment, 2 rooms in the veteran housing section that he'd been allocated before the program complications. It wasn't much, but it had privacy and security. "You can have the bedroom," Marcus said, setting down the minimal supplies they'd picked up. "I'll take the couch. Door locks from the inside. No surveillance inside veteran quarters, privacy regulations. You're safe here." Lyria looked at the bedroom door like it might be a trap. "You're giving me the private space." "Of course. You need privacy to recover. I'll be out here if you need anything, but I won't intrude." She stepped into the bedroom tentatively, like testing ice that might break. When she realized the door actually locked, that the space was truly private, her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with colors Marcus's database identified as profound relief. Over the following days, Marcus made good on his promises. He connected Lyria with legal advocates who specialized in displaced persons and asylum cases, used his veteran status to push through bureaucratic obstacles, found a Vel'karian cultural community in the station's lower levels, exiles and expatriates who welcomed Lyria and provided the cultural context she'd been desperately missing. And he deliberately maintained distance, helped her navigate the systems but didn't hover, provided resources but didn't control her choices, treated her like a capable person making her own decisions rather than a rescued victim who needed constant management. "You're strange," Lyria told him one evening, a week after her release. She'd started speaking more, the tremor of fear gradually fading from her voice. "You have legal responsibility for me, but you don't exercise it. You could demand anything and I'd have no recourse, but you don't. Because I don't want authority over you. I want you to be free to make your own choices." "Why?" Marcus thought about how to explain it. "Because nobody should be caged. Nobody should be traded like property. And nobody should have to be grateful for basic dignity and autonomy. Those things should be given freely, not as rewards for compliance." Lyria's bioluminescent patterns shifted to colors that Marcus was learning meant complex emotion. "In the facility, they told me I should be grateful for whoever accepted me, that my only value was in service. That resistance would only make my situation worse. They were wrong. Your value isn't in service to someone else. Your value is inherent. You're a person with thoughts, feelings, capabilities, and the right to self-determination. What happened to you was a violation of that, not a reflection of your worth." "I've been trying to figure out what you want from me," Lyria admitted. "What the real price is for your help, because everyone wants something. I want you to be safe and have the opportunity to build whatever life you choose. That's it. No hidden price. That can't be all. Why not? She didn't have an answer for that. The legal advocates made progress on Lyria's asylum case. The Vel'karian community provided cultural support and practical help, teaching her station systems, helping her understand civilian life in a context that didn't involve royal protocols or diplomatic frameworks. Slowly, Lyria transformed. Her bioluminescent patterns regained their vitality. She started making decisions about her own life, where to spend time, which cultural activities to pursue, which legal options made sense for her situation. She learned station navigation and started exploring on her own, coming back with stories about places she discovered. The trust came gradually, not because Marcus demanded it or expected it, but because he demonstrated consistently, through actions rather than words, that he wouldn't abuse the legal authority the system had tried to give him. "You could have kept me," Lyria said one day, several months after her release. They were in a communal garden where she'd started helping cultivate Vel'karian plants, an activity that seemed to bring her peace. "The documentation might say I'm under your protection, but everyone assumes I'm your companion, your property. You could have exercised that assumption. But I didn't want property. I wanted you to be free." "Why?" She asked the question differently now, not with fear or confusion, but with genuine curiosity about what motivated someone to act against their own interests. Because the right response to finding someone caged isn't to take advantage of their helplessness. It's to help them become free and capable again. Marcus looked at the bioluminescent flowers she'd been tending. "You were a princess. Then you were made into nothing by people who should have protected you. The right response isn't to exploit that. It's to help you become whoever you choose to be next." Lyria was quiet for a long time. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with colors that Marcus had learned meant profound emotion, gratitude mixed with grief for what was lost and hope for what might be possible. "In my culture, there's a concept, Sethara. It means debt beyond repayment. When someone gives you back your life, your personhood, your freedom, you owe them Sethara. You don't owe me anything. That's what makes it Sethara. You don't understand the debt because you don't think you did anything special. You just did what seemed right to you. But you gave me back my personhood when everyone else had turned me into an object. That debt is beyond my ability to repay, which makes it sacred." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded, accepting her words without trying to diminish or redirect them. The legal advocates eventually secured Lyria's asylum status. She was granted permanent residency with a path to citizenship. The Vel'karian community helped her find work that used her diplomatic training, cultural liaison positions, translation services, advisory roles that valued her skills without requiring royal status. She began rebuilding a life that was nothing like her royal past, but entirely her own choice. Marcus continued his quiet retirement, occasionally meeting with Lyria but never presuming to direct or control her path. Their relationship became something neither had expected, genuine friendship built on mutual respect rather than obligation or exploitation. The companion integration program faced investigation after Marcus's formal complaints gained traction with oversight authorities who couldn't ignore a documented case from a veteran with legal standing. Several administrators were removed. The program was suspended pending comprehensive reform. It wasn't the systemic change Marcus wanted. He knew programs like this existed on other stations, in other jurisdictions. But it was something, and it sent a message that at least some people wouldn't accept the sanitization of exploitation through bureaucratic language. Years later, when asked about the incident by a journalist investigating trafficking on border stations, Marcus would say simply, "I was told I was getting a companion. Instead, I found a prisoner. The choice was obvious. You free the prisoner and damn the consequences. Anything else would make you complicit in their captivity. I couldn't live with that complicity, so I didn't." And Lyria, When asked about the human who'd freed her, would explain about Sethara, about debts beyond repayment, and the profound gift of being treated as a person when the world has decided you're property. He didn't save me because he wanted something from me. He didn't free me expecting gratitude or service. He simply recognized that I was a person being treated as property, and he refused to accept that treatment. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with the colors of deep sincerity.